Today on the Sick Podcast, a Montreal Canadiens All-Star hanging out with another All-Star. If you're thinking a superstar is coming to Montreal in the offseason as an unrestricted free agent, maybe you're going to have to think again. And out of all the UFAs, who stays and who goes, coming up right here, I'm Marinaro on the Sick Podcast.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature.
And joining me today from RDS, comment ça va, Normand?
Ça va bien. Everything's fine, Tony. How about you?
Même quand il pleut, le soleil me tend la main, ça va bien. Hey, nice to see you, Normand, and welcome to Brunchin with Tony Marinaro, presented by 8.6 Intense by Nature, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. Speaking of passions, you and I will talk about one of our passions, the Montreal Canadiens. Let's do that. It was All-Star Weekend, Normand, and Nick Suzuki taking part in his first ever NHL All-Star game, hanging out with other All-Stars. Talk to me about what that could do for his career.
Well, it's a different atmosphere, of course. The All-Star game is you see the guys smiling, you see the guys cheering for each other. It's wonderful to see. It's a great time for these guys, and especially for a kid like Nick Suzuki to find out about a little more about how it is to be a superstar in this league. And certainly that's going to help him being around guys like Matt Bergeron and all the other guys, Pavelski, and all the other guys that he doesn't get to see or, to live with a couple of days together with these guys and just know a few things or two about the NHL. Because I'm sure that older guys share their experience and they certainly want to help these young guys become better NHLers in the future. So to me, it's for them, and to me, it was okay to watch it. I mean, it's not as wonderful as a hockey final game in the Stanley Cup Finals, but it's fun to see all these players have all the smiles and going through different times and going through different tricks, and especially seeing the young guys that are coming into the league, like a Trevor Zegras who just does magic. You saw what he did with the cape on and the everyday Joe or usual Joe, and what a move he put on Manon Leon. But that said, I think it's good for those young players, especially, to see what it is to be an NHL All-Star.
Normand, talk to me about Suzuki. He leads the Canadiens in goals, along with Toffoli and Anderson with 9. He has more assists than any player on the team. He has more points than any player on the team. But a lot of people take a look at his stats. They take a look at his talent. Unfortunately for him, they're going to take a look at the contract that was given to him by Marc Bergevin, and they're going to say he's going to need to do more. 27 points in 44 games. He does lead the team. But let's just say that he goes through these patches where 4 or 5 games, he's just not the same Nick Suzuki, and then he's back up, which I guess is normal for a young player. But what does Nick Suzuki have to be doing for you early on in a hockey game for you, Normand Flynn, to say he's on his game tonight?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a very tough season for everybody, young or older players, or guys that have been in the league for a long time will tell you that you need some kind of motivation. Of course, regular season has its ups and downs and challenges and injuries and all that. But that said, when you're that far away from being, a playoff contender like the Montreal Canadiens are, I don't know where they can find their motivation. And it's the same for the young guy. But if you ask the question, Norman Flynn, what you want to see from Nick Suzuki, I want to see him get better at things that he needs to get better at. And that's being a better player both sides of the ice and trying to be the difference maker in games. They're not playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning every game. They're playing against other teams that are almost in the same situation as them, who that doesn't have that great of a lineup. They need to show up, at least for those games, be very competitive. And I think Suzuki needs to be in his game right at the start. He should probably start by giving a couple of body checks to try to get his game going, and then try to find the net and trying to shoot more at the net, which I think he needs to do a lot more. So that said, you have other teams that have young guys that are struggling, and you have other teams that are young guys that are doing, great in the first seasons, and then it sort of, lowers down a little bit as they go on. But for Suzuki, you are going to expect a lot of points for him. So he needs to be ready this season to be ready for next season. He doesn't have much time to think about his future, because the future is already signed for. So that's going to be a lot of pressure, like you said, at that contract. And they certainly, as a team, need to find guys to play with them. And I'd love to see it right now this year. Try to get these games, the rest 40 games or whatever that's left, take those games to get ready for next season and find them partners to play. If it's going to be Toffoli and Kid Caulfield, let's put them together and let's fix them there.
Norma, Brunchin with Marinaro goes live on Sundays, and what we do is we take a lot of questions from everyone watching and everyone who wants to know, and we try and answer them as much as we can and as fast as we can, so we can get to as many as possible. And sharing is caring, by the way. Tell your friends about the Sick Podcast and make them share it and stuff like that, so we can all grow together. You can follow us on all the social media platforms, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter, at the Sick Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. We're going to get to this question in just a second by Jason Party. But before we do, if we can just hold it there for a second, I want to ask you one more question on Suzuki, since we're talking about him. As you saw the images, he hung out with Patrice Bergeron on the weekend, and he was caught on video quite often, and pictures of him and doing interviews and all that stuff. There was a picture that was sent to me from a friend of mine who's one of the top strength and conditioning coaches in the city. And he said to me, this is not the kind of body composition I would want for a Nick Suzuki. The reason why I bring this up is I've been told that Suzuki and the Canadiens don't quite see him at the same playing weight. One side wants him under 200. The other side wants him at around 205, 210, and thicker and stockier. And I don't know which side is which, but what do you make of that? I'm curious to hear your opinion as a guy who's coached a lot. Clearly, if they make him thicker, it's because they'll think one side will think it gives you more success as a number one centerman going up against bigger, stronger players. But if he's lighter, he's obviously going to be more mobile, more agile.
That's the big point. To me, that's the major point. And how does he feel when he's heavier? If he feels stronger and he wants to, he's got more power to go in the corners and get that puck. I don't know how slower he can get if he puts on, let's say, if we're talking about a 10-pound difference, let's say. They want him at 195 and the team wants him, or whatever, 195 to 205. That's his weight. When you play a game, you lose about 4 to 5 pounds of water. So you're probably going to start at 205, but you'll finish the game maybe a little under 200, depending on how much you're going to play. So that's it. To me, it's about the player, how he feels. I remember, when I played, when I could eat a big steak 2 hours before a game, and I didn't mind. And I heard Kurt Muller say the same thing, and he played NHL. So I wasn't the only guy. And some guys say, well, you can't eat a steak before, 8 hours or 4 hours, or some other guys. So to me, it's all about personal. As far as I'm concerned as a coach, if it makes you weaker or slower because you're heavy and you got big arms and you're not agile anymore, that needs to be corrected. But if you're playing the same game at 5 or 6 or 10 pounds heavier, and you as a player feel better because you feel stronger and you think that's going to help your game more by winning the battles because you're a player that goes in front of the net, I don't see a problem with that. Because if Bergeron is going to be, not Bergeron, but if Suzuki is going to be like a Bergeron, he's going to be strong. And that doesn't mean being heavier means you're stronger. It means that you are more powerful. And to me, it has nothing to do with weight. You can throw your weight around. You're going to be heavier when you hit. But to win a battle against another player, you're going to need to be strong. So in my sense as a coach, I want him to the maximum that he can reach and the best he can feel about his weight and his body and how he feels on the ice. To me, that's the most important thing.
All right, a question here from Jason Party. A big hello from Newfoundland, Tony and Norma. I love the show. Thank you very much. What do you guys think the Canadiens could realistically get in return if they trade Mike Hoffman? Norma, Mike Hoffman is 32 years old. As you know, he can play either left or right wing. He's got a lethal one-timer. He can help a lot of teams' power plays. After this season, he's under contract for 2 more seasons at $4.5 million. It seems to me the contract is respectable in terms of term. It seems to me the contract is respectable in terms of salary cap. So would you get rid of him knowing that?
But the problem is this, Tony, and I've said it before. You need to know where you're going. If you're going to tank and not make the playoffs, you know you're not going to make the playoffs this season. But if your idea is to get back on your feet next year and try to be a contender or try to be in the playoffs, a guy like Hoffman is going to help in the future. But of course, this year, he's probably going to be looking to go out if this thing goes down. And if they start a rebuild, you don't need a Mike Hoffman in a rebuild. So yes, he needs to be traded. I don't think you're going to get much for him because the team that's going to take him is going to have to swallow the money. The Canadiens are not going to swallow every bit of every contract till the end of the year because they'll have a $50 million salary caps next year if they do. So guys are going to have to leave with their contracts. So you might not get much out of Mike Hoffman if you trade him because the team will have, like I said, to take and swallow that contract. He may stay just a year with the team that's going to take him. So that's the reason I'm saying I wouldn't expect much as far as getting something in return for Hoffman. If they don't want him, the team that's going to take him is going to use him for a year, like I said, and it's going to be a contender for the Stanley Cup final.
Norma, Kent Hughes has made it pretty clear that, he needs to take money off the cap. The Canadiens are statistically the worst team in the league, but they spend more money than any other team in the league. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So he wants to take money, shave money off the cap. So having said that, when you say something like that, the first thing you do is you take a look at, big contracts and long-term. So Carey Price, obviously, that contract in that situation needs to be addressed, right? Carey Price is making too much money at $10.5 million a year, and he's under contract for, after this year, 4 more years. Then, of course, there's the Jeff Petrie situation. Jeff Petrie is under contract. He makes $6.25 million per year. And after this year, he's under contract for 3 more seasons. Those are contracts and those are players that you would think Kent Hughes would want to address right away before the Hoffmans of this world. Having said that, what if one of the things that's very high on the totem pole for the Canadiens is a culture change and putting together a hard-working team? At that point, let's be honest, Mike Hoffman is not the hardest working player on this team.
No, he's not. And Mike Hoffman, he was acquired by Bergevin to improve the power play. That's the only reason. They needed some guy that's going to help them, that's going to help a defensive-minded team to put the puck in the net offensively on the power play. And that's exactly what Hoffman brought. And remember, the guy that made that trade, Mark Bergevin, his idea wasn't to tank after that season last year. His idea was try to get there next year. So he wanted to keep all these players. Yes, the salary cap was high, but everybody wanted him to spend more. Remember, 2 years prior to that, showing up in the finals, everybody was telling him he's not spending the money that he's got in his hands. Now he said, okay, I'm going all out. That's what he said. Had he kept his job, and the team would have been probably, I assume, a little better. But, all these guys injured, it changed the whole situation. He's out. But for a new GM coming in or 2 guys coming in, and they're looking at this thing as they're saying, well, we're not going anywhere with that. They need to readdress and know exactly where they want to be in order to say what you're saying right now. Price, Petrie, Hoffman. And like I said, Hoffman, you don't want to take any of the money Hoffman makes. You don't want to take it for the other team. If they want him, go bye-bye. Give me a 7th round or even nothing. Give me a player in the minors. I don't care. Just get rid of the contract. But in the case of Petrie and in the case of Price, I don't absolutely agree on letting these guys go. Petrie, yes, because he wants out. He has to go. And he should have been out right away. He should be home right now in Michigan with his family, enjoying his kids, and waiting for a trade to get him. But that said, I'm not the GM. That's what I would have done, and he wouldn't have lost any value. As for Price, you got to know what he wants. You got to know first if he's healthy. If he's healthy, you
probably would have lost. Pardon me.
Listen, let me finish, Tony.
Yeah.
If you're going to take $4 million or $5 million off that 10.5 contract, you're going to need another goalie, right? And if you want a good one, it's going to cost you at least $4.5. You're going to be close to that 10.5 you're paying anyway. So I don't see I see an issue with taking a lot of money. If somebody wants Price and you want to take the whole contract, that would be the best thing again. If they want to rebuild and retool this thing for the next years, I see that. But I don't see the Canadians taking some like 4.5 or $5 million a year off that contract and then having to pay another goaltender because you don't want to lose like you're losing this year in the next 3 seasons. You're going to want to have a more competitive team. So you'll need somebody better than what we have right now between the pipes.
Well, somebody picking up Price's contract at 10.5, I mean, is almost impossible unless the Canadians end up getting a contract in return, which is upwards of $5 million for a player that's not that effective on another team. And as far as Hoffman is concerned, I wouldn't have an urgency to trade him, even though I know he's not the hardest working player, because the contract, first of all, you can't get rid of everybody. Number 2, you're going to need players to play here next season. Number 3, the contract's pretty digestible. Let's go to Phil. Awesome duo. Appreciate these podcasts. Thank you very much. Do you think we will see any trades that will surprise us? If so, thoughts on who? Normand, can you see Kent Hughes trading somebody that you're not talking about on Anti-Sham, that I'm not talking about on the Sick Podcast, that fans aren't talking about, a player that they would think maybe one day might get traded, but not now? Can you see Kent Hughes trading somebody like that? If so, who are we talking about?
I'm thinking maybe Caulfield.
And mostly too, Mo.
He's got a value. He's got a value. And if they're looking for, I don't know what they're looking for. If they don't like what they see in him, it
doesn't make sense. And I'm going to tell you why.
I know. And you told me just before, the question is somebody that we don't expect. All the other guys, Toronto, we all expect it, right?
Yes.
We all expect it. But if they don't think, and I don't know what they're thinking because they haven't made any moves yet. I don't know what they're thinking about Caulfield. I'm sure that there's one team in the league that's very interested in Caulfield, and that's the Devils. Because he's played with Jack Hughes, and you saw what that kid can do. What can you pull out of there? What can you pull out of New Jersey for a kid like Caulfield? Like I'm just going nuts here.
Okay. So I understand.
Can we get Nico Hischier for Caulfield and we give them a first-round pick? Could we get that? Do you think Caulfield and a first-round pick for Nico Hischier? I'm just saying, out of the blue.
Yeah. So I understand that because the way the question was phrased, that it was going to be a surprise answer. I get all that. The reason, though, why Caulfield doesn't make sense is because it's a team that has a lot of big contracts that they want to part with. They're going to have to eat some of them. They want to rebuild. And Cole Caulfield is a 21-year-old, first or second best prospect in the organization, making $881,000 on the cap, and will still make that amount next year. So the 2 things that they want going forward, or the 3 things, youth, entry-level contract, and high potential, he has all 3 of them. So I would have answered it like this when you would have said, is there a player that we're not talking about trading that you trade? If the answer would be Dvorak, or if the answer, because they just acquired him, if the answer would be Paling, or if the answer would be Evans, I think that's an answer you can give. But Caulfield, to me, it wouldn't make sense. How do you explain that to the fan base? We want to get younger, we want to get better, and the kid who's led every team in scoring his whole life, we're trading him.
I'll tell you why, Tony.
Yeah.
Because I remember when Mark Stone was available in Ottawa.
Yeah.
I know the Ottawa Senators and the Canadiens are not going to trade a lot of players because it's too close. But I know for one thing, Kotkaniemi was in the talks. And I, for one, said, you know what? He would have left. I would have taken Mark Stone. Because I knew that one thing, Mark Stone was a dominant player on our team. And he could play on the right side before anybody. And he could be your next captain. And I wasn't so sure, like a lot of people were sure about Kotkaniemi when that trade happened. And Bergevin said, you know what? They're asking me too much. They wanted Kotkaniemi and something else. I don't know what that something else was. But I know because Kotkaniemi was on that trade, they didn't want to do it. But that said, when you're looking back, Galchenyuk, Kotkaniemi, when they were at their height, at their best, when they were in first year or second year, you have to have that appetite for trying to see what's going to happen in the future. You have to have a better long-term evaluation of your players on your team now in order to make the right decisions. That's what's lacking. Because had they been a little more better at evaluating their own talent, they would never have traded Sergei, the defenseman that went to
Sergachev.
Sergachev.
Yeah.
They would not have traded him for Drouin because they knew that, they should know what they have in their hands.
So are you telling me this morning on Brunchin with Marinaro, presented by 8.6, that in your opinion, Cole Caulfield is not an untouchable?
He wouldn't be a Norman Flynn. If it depends on what I can get. I mean, if you're ready to trade Carey Price, who brought you to the finals last year, who's the best goalie in the league, I know the salary is off the chart. I know that. But they have to pay him that because that's probably what he would have gotten elsewhere. But that said, everything that I see about Caulfield this season, in a season where he should, I'm not going to say blossom, but a season where he should have ice time, no pressure because the team's not going anywhere. He should have first grit power play unit. He should be on the ice with Suzuki all the time to try to get these two guys to work together. I don't see any of that. So
I don't see it that way.
You're telling me that by sending him the rest of the year to the American League, next year he becomes your first line right wing? I'm totally stunned. I'm totally stunned.
I don't see it that way.
In New Jersey, they called me and they say, you know what? Jack Hughes and this kid, we want this kid. What do you want? Well, you ready to throw in Nick Hischier? I'll do my share on my side. You know what Nick Hischier is worth. He can play in the NHL, and he's a center. He would take a lot of pressure off Suzuki, and he's a great player. I mean, if they offer Nico Hischier from, don't you want to think about it?
I'd rather try and go get Jack Hughes in New Jersey if you want to reunite
the two instead of Jack Hughes.
I understand that, but
Nico Hischier, you might get. They might think about it twice.
I'm not so sure I see things the same way as you. I'm going to tell you why.
But that's okay. That's why
Of course.
That's why we do a good show.
We do a great show. We don't do a good show. We'll let others do a good show. We do a great show. The standard is a lot higher here. All right. You said moments ago, yeah, but you know what? They were willing to let Price go, and Price is going to be 35 in August. He's got 15 NHL years under his belt. He's had multiple surgeries. He's got multiple ailments. He's a declining asset. Cole Caulfield is the exact opposite. So I wouldn't compare the two. For me, it's apples and oranges in that respect. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna get there's a lot of topics.
Just to equalize what you just said.
Yes,
I'm not giving him away.
I
want
understand.
a young prospect that's already established in the league in return. I'm not giving him away. The Devils, you take him, give me a 7th round. No. You give me Nico Hischier. Put Nico Hischier in that trade, and we're going to make a deal. I'm not saying I don't care and I don't want this kid anymore. Let him be good with Hughes. When we get a top number 1 or 2 center in Nico Hischier, I think the powerhouse, every team that's a powerhouse at center, they're very good. You would have two excellent centermen in Suzuki and Isher.
Well,
That's my thought.
Listen, it's not a bad idea. And I'm going to tell you this. In theory, you're right to say that Caulfield shouldn't be an untouchable, because there should be no untouchable in the National Hockey League ever, because you don't have any idea what the other team might offer you in return for that one player. So as great as a player is, if the other team can offer you 4 assets that play on your top 2 lines or top 2 units, there should be no player untouchable. Let's go back to the questions if we can, because I want to try and get to as many as possible. Stephen Howard, this one's for you. Norma, would you trade Suzuki in a package if it would give you a bona fide number 1, an example like a Sebastian Aho or something like that? So let's just say an Aho is available. Would you package Suzuki?
Man, wait.
Well, I mean, the example, Aho is a better player than Suzuki, and I'm not so sure that Suzuki will ever hit Aho's level. I hope for him.
If Aho's available, put Suzuki and Caulfield in that trade and send them to Carolina. Aho's going to make your team better tomorrow and for the next 10 years.
Oh, I wouldn't do that.
And that's guaranteed.
2 for 1, I wouldn't do that.
Huh?
I would 2 for 1. I would not do that.
Well, I would.
Oh,
You see,
okay.
we're not on the same planet. I don't know. I don't know
That's
why.
okay.
I don't know why a kid's drafted by the Montreal Canadiens. He has so much value to their eyes, and he doesn't show anything yet. He did when he came in the first year, but he hasn't shown anything to me to say, Aho's in the talks. Hey, right away, bango, parti, fini.
But
You're not talking about a number 1 centerman ever for 10 years in Montreal. You've got your guy.
You know, Andre Tourigny said this the other day, though. You don't go from high school to university. Like, they skipped a very important development step with Cole Caulfield. Not everyone is DeBrincat. Everyone is different.
Okay, not everyone is Trevor Zegras. Not everyone is Jamie Drysdale. Look at all these teams. The guys that tell me this, I remind them all the time. Take 50 minutes of your time. Look at every team, 2 top lines, top 4 defensemen, and look at the guys that played in the American League. Look at them. If they played, 15 games, I don't call that as, being developed in the American League. Being developed in the American League to me is 1 or 1 year and a half. But those guys, there are some guys that went there. And it took even 2 years. But they end up becoming like Jake Evans. Good third liners, could probably play on the second line. But the top-notch players do not go to the American League, Tony. I'm sorry. I'm not saying this out of the blue. Make your research. Look, they don't. I'm sorry, they don't.
Yeah.
Trevor Zegras never played a game at the American League level and never will. So as Jamie Drysdale, the defenseman, and he's 19 years old, Drysdale. 19 years old. Never played and never will play a game in the American League unless for reconditioning. That's, to me, it tells me that, okay, either you draft them, they're better, or once they're in, you know how to develop them. And from the day 1 to the year 2, you make them better. The problem in Montreal, they come here year 1, they're that high. Year 2, they're over here. What happened?
So you believe, and the players you stated are your case for that, you can still develop young players at the National Hockey League level.
You told me before you want to keep Caulfield because he makes less than $1 million because the NHL came in with this entry-level contract for 3 years where those kids don't make a lot of money. Well, to me, that made enough sense to say, you know what? They want the NHL teams to take these kids because that's how they're going to get under the cap. And 2, we're going to see more young talent coming in every year because the teams are going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
And even the best teams are doing that. And I'm not saying that the American League is not good to develop players. I'm not saying. I'm looking at the facts. And the facts are the guys that are developed in the American League do some of them. I'm not going to say 100% never play that. I'll say 85% never would go to the American League. The 15 other percent that have turned pro and are turned 2 top lines or top 4D, there are some guys. but the most and the majority of them, 80 to 85%, they don't go to the American League.
Mr. One Eric has a question for you, all right? Is Primo a potential number one NHL goalie? If not, is he a number two? Now, I know you worked a long time with Mario Barry, and you could tell the listeners and the viewers right now who Mario Barry is if they don't know him. What would Mario Barry answer to that question? If you would pick up the phone and call Mario and say, hey, Mario, what should I be looking at in Caden Primo to tell me if I think he could be a number one in the NHL or a number two? And once again, tell everyone who Mario Barry is.
First, Mario Barry was my goalie coach for many years. I coached from Adam to junior major. You know, I went up the scales like I thought a player should do, and I thought as a coach I needed to do the same things in order to learn what I wanted to become, which was an NHL coach at some point. I wanted to go through the steps, step by steps, and I had a guy like him who played with me in junior in St. Leonard, and he became a goalie coach as soon as I became a head coach, and I kept him all along until major junior. So Mario, he coached the good kids that I have, Stéphane Fizette in Bantam, Félix Potvin, Major AAA. I had José Theodore, Major Junior, and Martin Brodeur. Eric Raymond was the goalie coach. Now he was the goalie with the Martin the same years in Bourassa, Major AAA. So Mario was that goalie coach all these years. And Mario, the only issue he had was he didn't speak English. That was his problem because he could have been an NHL goalie coach today, I assume. And he never learned enough the language, never was, at ease with it. But, that was probably the major mistake or the major flaw that he has, because he knew how to treat goaltenders. But I'm certainly going to ask him. I asked a question to Stéphane Waite, and I asked the question to Stéphane Fizette, because when I worked with those guys, I want to pick their brains on goaltenders. And what Waite was telling me, he said he thinks he can be a good goalie at the NHL level. Not certain that number one, but certainly a good number two. And he's got a lot of things to improve, of course. But right now he needs more American League experience because he doesn't have enough experience to take what's going on right now at the NHL level. So in my opinion, they should keep him around. But I don't think he's going to be their number one goalie like a Carey Price was, because that's what was sold when we first saw him. Wow, he's big, he's huge. Yeah. But he doesn't go around the net and clear the net and working around the net like Carey Price does. Price got a lot better as the years went by, but I don't see Caden Primo being half as good as Price around his net.
Well, listen, it's a long shot considering they drafted him 7th round, 199th overall, but I still believe. I'm the president of the fan club. I want him in Laval the rest of the season, and I want him in Laval next season, all of next season as well, which makes me believe that they should pick up a goalie. But the last time I talked with Brian Wild's like, they want to tank this year. So if they give up 50-plus shots a game and their goalies get lit up for 5, it is what it is. But I'd like to see Caden Primo. I'd like to see the Canadiens pick up a goalie so that Caden Primo can play in Laval the rest of the season and next season. Let's go to the questions. Eric Diorio, is it time to trade the rights to Jordan Harris? No, I believe they're going to sign Jordan Harris, who plays at Northeastern, and Kent Hughes coached them for 3 years. I believe they're going to sign him. Norma, speaking of signing, there's one player who was represented by Kent Hughes that a lot of people have been looking at, saying his contract is up at the end of the year. What a great mentor he would be for Suzuki. They hung out together this weekend at the All-Star game. I'm talking to you about Patrice Bergeron, who was asked about it, and he said, and by the way, I don't expect Patrice to say, yes, I'm going to sign with the Canadiens in the offseason. But Patrice said, look, I don't even know if I'm going to play next year. I'm going to take it day by day. We'll wait till the end of the year. If my body feels good enough to play, I'll continue playing, and it'll be with the Boston Bruins. And he said it would have probably been different if it was the Nordiques, his childhood team growing up. But he said ever since Hughes was hired, a lot of people think 1 + 1 makes 2, and then I'll be in Montreal, but I won't. Disappointed to hear that, but I don't think he could have said otherwise, right?
Well, he's a new version of their Raymond book. I don't see him in another sweater. But Raymond went to win a cup in Colorado, but he knew that was his last season. So I don't see it. If you want him to be a mentor, he has to stay a couple of years in order to help a guy like Suzuki. I think if he does play one season with the Canadians, it would be like a case like, Bourque, but Bourque came in with a team that was expecting a Stanley Cup. So I don't see that situation happening soon in Montreal. But I don't believe Patrice Bergeron has any interest in coming here, and the fans, they certainly are willing to see him again. If he's going to play hockey, they want to see him in Boston. It's
like Yzerman with Detroit, right? I mean, he was started a wing and ended up a wing, and that was that. All right, more questions coming in. What do you do with Drouin? Wait out for one more year, or you trade him now for whatever? The team obviously sucks whenever he's in the lineup. This was one of the worst trades in Montreal Canadiens history.
Yes, it was. And I remember I was live on TV when I said, I don't dislike Drouin. I have nothing personal against him. But I said, that's a bad trade. That was a panic move because of the loss of Radulov, who signed in Dallas. That was a panic move by Mark Bergevin, I thought. But anyway, that said, it's done. The same case applies to Drouin.
Do you agree with Bobby, who sent that text message, who says when he's in the lineup, they play worse? Do you agree with that?
No. Well, no. They find all kinds of ways to play worse anyway. So Drouin or not Drouin. But
are they better with Drouin?
Drouin is the same type of player, in my opinion, than Hoffman. He's a compliment. You need to have a team before you put a guy like that in. In Tampa Bay, they had the team, and they preferred going elsewhere because the compliment that they wanted was too expensive. They had other guys that could do the same job, and especially a young player like Brady Point. When he came into the league, they knew he was going to be a player. So what they said, why would we pay Drouin $5.5 or $6 million a year when we can have Brady Point who can do the same job for 3 years at under $1 million? That's the reason they said, you know what, we can part ways with Drouin. But that said, he's the same as Hoffman. If somebody wants him, give me a 4th round, 5th round, 6th round. I don't care. Get rid of the contract. Bye-bye. The contract is the issue. And those two guys are the same as far as their game, as far as their talent, as far as what they bring to your team.
Normand, ça c'est du bonbon, as they say en beau français. This is candy for me this morning with you. You and I have been together for over a decade. I love talking Habs with you and talking hockey with you. Give me about 10 more minutes if you can. I know it's a Sunday, and I know you have a million things to do, including jumping in your spa, but give me a few more minutes here. Okay. I'm going to put you on the spot, but I know you're a big boy and you can take it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Would Drouin play on your team?
I didn't hear that.
Would Drouin play on your team?
Just like Kotkaniemi, no.
Wow.
Just like Kotkaniemi, because I had a choice. I would have a choice. If you don't have a choice, Drouin would have played on my junior team because his skills was off the charts and he could be better, and all the other sides of his game wouldn't show that much. He would put 4 points in a game and cost you 2. Doesn't show that much. But when you get to the NHL, you're getting to the peak, the best of the best. They're all the best of everywhere. So there, you don't have 4 points a game. You got 1, and sometimes it takes you another 3 games to get another 1. So you can't cost me 2 points every game. And that's the issue I have with a guy like Drouin, because I don't see him as being a player that you want to build your team around. Like I said, he's a compliment. I would use him for a year or 2, just like I said about Hoffman. You need a guy to put the puck in, and then on the power play, he's got a lethal shot. Hoffman. I can take whatever comes with Hoffman, all the bad sides, as long as he does what I'm paying him to do, and that's to score goals. And that's what he does on the power play. So both cases to me are the same.
UFAs. I want to.
And in a rebuild process, you don't want any of them around. Neither of them.
Okay. I want to tackle UFAs now. And because those are the most susceptible to go, you would think their contract's up. Instead, if you're not going to bring them back, instead of losing them for nothing, you try and get whatever you can get.
Yeah.
And you get something for Paquette.
You don't get anything for Paquette. You're going to place him on waivers. Maybe nobody touches him.
Sherratt's on UFA. Keeping him or trading him?
I offer him a decent contract because I'm not going to need players, and I think he can help this team long term. I'm offering him a decent contract, and I see what he says. And if he wants to stay at the money I'm offering him, I want to keep him long term, 4 to 5 years.
So let's just say his last contract with the Canadiens was 3 years, 3.5 per year. You go back to him and say, I'll give you the same contract was given to you last time by the previous general manager. If he says yes, you're in?
I'm in.
All right. Kulak.
I keep him around too. The
Weidman.
Canadians have drafted 32 defensemen, Tony, since 2010. 32. Jared Tenorti, Morgan Ellis, were both 2 Ds in that 2010 draft. And now all we have to show for after 32 and 12 years is 1, Romanov. I hope we can develop in the future, and this new guy, these new 2 GMs, they can find a way to develop a 4th or 5th D within their own organization, like they're hopefully going to do with Romanov.
Wow,
so
hopefully Jordan Harris, Norlander, Gooley, they all end up playing on the big team.
Well, that's it. All those names. Remember the names before? And they never developed any of them. So no, that's what I'm saying. You need to develop those guys. If you don't have the Cale Makars and, Samuel Girard and these guys and Adam Fox, you don't have them on your team. You need to produce at least the guys that are playing 3rd, 4th row lines. And, it's tough to develop it. It's better, it should be easier to develop that type of player. So Kulak, to me, answers the bell just like Sherratt. I'd like to keep him around.
Dauphin and Weidman. Do you bring any of them back?
Who?
Dauphin and Weidman. They're both UFAs.
Weidman, bye-bye. Dauphin, I'd keep him around. I like that for one reason. I was around him when he was developed and up on C. I know he's a real good kid, and he's going to do whatever the team asks him to do. So he could be a 4th-line player on my team because some nights you might need him to play on a power play. He can also do that on a second unit. Not that he's going to put you off the charts, offensively, but he can do that job because he's smart enough offensively.
This is how we're going to end the show now. We're going to do rapid fire questions. We're going to try and answer them as quickly as possible. Whether it's me or you, let's go. Here are the questions. Center ice, Tony and Norm. Don't you think Ducharme is harming youth movement? He's killing the confidence of Romanov and Caulfield. Great show, Tony and Norm. Norma, I'm going to give you this one, and I'm going to tell you that I want every answer to be less than 10 seconds. Is Ducharme killing the confidence of the young players, notably Caulfield and Romanov?
Yes, because he's trying to win games, and he's trying to play those veterans before, and I think that shouldn't be the game.
Next question. Walter, Tony, do you think Montreal players are walking into a dressing room saying, guys, management doesn't care what happens to any of us? No, I'm thinking they walk into the locker room saying they want to get younger, they want to get better, and if I want to stay here, I need to play better. So show me what you got if you want to stay, and if you don't want to stay, my door is open, come in and see me, and you're gone. Leon, this one's for you, Norma. Who do you guys see the Habs hire as assistant general manager now that Daniel Briere is on the verge of being promoted to AGM in Philadelphia? Norma, who's the AGM for the Canadiens?
Assistant GM, I would love to see Martin Martin Jr.
Me too. Next.
Because he
B-roll.
would take care of not only the draft, he would be the head scout and assistant GM. He would take care of all the youth program, draft and development.
I'd give him a blank check. I agree with you. We agree on that one. Martin Martin Jr. I don't think he's coming, though, but that's the guy I'd give it to. Are the young Habs learning too many bad habits playing with this losing culture? 10 seconds, Norma.
Yes, they are.
Next. AG, bonjour, Normand. How many first-round picks do you think the Habs will end up with in this draft?
Well, they already have 11. I hope they get around 15 and they don't screw up again.
All right, let's go to, well, that's not first-round picks. That's picks overall, right?
Oh, picks overall, yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
said.
I think he was asking for first-rounders. So I think what he's saying is, can you get some
first rounders? You just need the
first-rounders?
highest one and not make a mistake if that's the question.
Ambient says, great show. Could Josh Anderson be traded to Calgary, who were interested in him before for Quebec native Jacob Pelletier. Please ask Normand. Normand, would you trade Josh Anderson for Jacob Pelletier?
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to make this a Quebec team, and I want to make this a Quebec issue. We had to have a right wing that's strong and big, and we got him. I think we should keep Anderson. He's at the right price, and for the long term, he's going to be a player. I'd like to keep him around.
All right, next. Dan Farley. Hi, Tony. Love the show. Team also needs defense. I know this is probably a long shot, but is there a chance that PK Subban comes back to Montreal?
Forget that. No,
not
triple
happening.
no.
Why would he come back here? If he's going to go anywhere, he's going to go to a team where he can win the cup.
You don't want a guy that's going to mess up your culture. If they want to start something fresh, they need to have guys that are going to bring their culture better, not ruin it. I don't think PK Subban is a great player to be around. Look at how many teams he went around and he was traded again and again. So, no, thank you.
Simon Imbach, we're tanking next year to have a chance for Bedard. Normand, would you tank next year for a chance at Connor Bedard?
Well, tank. If you're sure you're going to get him, I don't mind. But you're not sure you're going to get him. It's going to be a three-team, lottery. I don't see that as being an option. If you do get him, fine. But expressly say, we're going to tank, I don't believe in that. I'm sorry, guys. I know you want it back big time, but I don't believe in tanking. How do you tell your coach and the staff that you got there? Okay, guys, don't score goals, don't win games. Doesn't happen.
No,
I don't understand why people want that.
You just don't put an overly good team on the ice and they're going to lose by default. All right, okay.
Yeah, don't ask me to coach it, though.
Mathieu Ouellette. Hello, Tony and Norm. What about Shea Weber? Normand, is there a job in the organization you'd offer Shea Weber?
No.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hey, if he had been interested in Montreal, he would be here having his treatments. He would be around the team. He would be trying to help these guys right now. He's not. To me, that's showing me that not a great deal of interest in Montreal. I'm not going to say great captain. He was a great captain. But I'm just going to say it to you, I don't think there's a lot of interest in him being around the team, because he would be if he'd be interested in doing anything else after this playing career with Montreal.
I'm so disappointed that he didn't speak up until now, but I'm sure that Chantal will get him to speak at some point, the way she got Carey Price to speak. And by the way, I want to mention this, okay? I want to bring this up because I did the Sick podcast with Brendan Kelly last week, okay? And, we talked about Carey Price talking to the media, and we talked about that it was strategic, that it was done at 6:15 on a Sunday and all that stuff, right? So I mentioned it was strategic. And Chantal touched base with me, and she said, "I want to make a position, make something clear to you." She said, "The Carey Price press conference, I said it was strategic. She said it was nothing strategic about it." And she said, the answer is simple. And I want all of our viewers and all of our listeners to know. Kent Hughes absolutely wanted to be at Carey Price's presser, Normand. But Kent was giving interviews between 3:30 and 4:15 to La Presse, between 4:20 and 5 o'clock to The Athletic. And at 5 o'clock, he and Chantal made their way to Radio Canada so they could take part in TV show Tout le monde en parle. They got back at 6 o'clock. Carey could have talked at 6:15, and they didn't want Carey to be there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the Bell Center, knowing that he wasn't playing that night. And the reason why it was done on a Sunday is she was able to convince Carey the day before on the Saturday, so they decided to book it right away on the Sunday. And obviously during the bye week, during the bye week, everyone's with their family. It's a little bit risky at that point. So there you go. It's now clear, and I hope that Shea Weber will speak at some point. I think Chantal will be able to make him speak. 2 more questions so Normand can jump in his spa. All right. David. Hello, guys. Love your show. I read a rumor that the Canadians might trade Petrie for Klingberg. Do you think he'd be a perfect puck-moving defenseman for a rebuild? Normand, John Klingberg, yes or no? Involved in the deal for Jeff Petrie?
I just don't know if Klingberg wants to come in this situation, but I would, player for player, yes. Petrie wants out, and you get an NHL player for him, fine. It's a great deal. Bye-bye.
The last one. Vito Maiolo, morning, gentlemen. With the All-Star game done, do you anticipate a ramp-up in trade activity leading up to the deadline? The Habs in particular. Norma will end it with this. Who do you think will be traded by the deadline? And when would you trade them?
Okay. Patriot's going to be traded. I believe that Sherrod's going to be traded because he won out. And because of his situation, he wants to test the market. So he's going to be traded. I think Dvorak should be traded. You're probably going to see another forward traded in Hoffman or Drouin or both. So I'd see about 5 players before the trade deadline.
Up to 5 trades before the trade deadline. He's Norma Flynn. It was Brunchin with Marinaro. How about a video tour of Norma's spa? And how is your Cocker Spaniel doing these days? I think you mentioned to me.
No longer there.
He's passed on, eh?
Yeah, well, Tony, it's been close to 10 years now that we've had that spa thing, right?
So how many dogs do you have right now?
I got 2.
What kind of dogs do you have?
One is a Tekel and the other one is a Samoyed.
All right. You say hello to your dogs for me.
Yeah, you want to see them?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Let me just take the camera with me.
Oh, that would be great. We're getting a tour of Norma's house today. This is fantastic. Norma, where do you live again? Where do you live?
I live in Bolton West.
Bolton West.
Yeah, this is my Samoyed. He's sleeping right now. You see him?
Hold on a second. I don't. Oh, no. Put the camera lower. Oh, what a beauty he is. Look at him.
And where's the little guy? Okay, I'll show you the other guy.
Yeah, he's right beautiful.
There. This guy's a real good soccer player.
Wow.
Watch this. Get down, Tekel. He'll get the ball.
Hold on a second. Let's see.
He was sleeping. Subban. Was he? Doesn't want to do it, but usually he go picks it up and he brings it back quick.
Oh my God. Not only a lack of offense with the Canadians, but even the dogs don't want to score. Hey, Papa Sim. Norma, have a great Sunday, man. Thanks for doing this. I really enjoyed it.
It was all fun.
Salut, merci beaucoup. From RDS, he's Norma Flynn. I'm Marinaro. Tell your friends about this podcast. It's absolutely sick. And if you think it's good now, you have absolutely no idea. We're going to take this thing to the next level and a level after that and a level after that. Tell your friends about it. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at The Sick Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. We'll see you again. By the way, I want to let all of you know, chances are we might not do this next week. At least I don't think so, because the Canadians play 2 games on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday at 12:30. So I think there's a chance we can do it after the game and not before the game. Make sure you follow us on all our social media channels, and this way you'll be notified when an episode drops and when we go live. Have a great Sunday. Thanks for joining me.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature.